All right, let's go ahead and get started. And other folks, if they join in, they can catch up to us. Thanks all for playing along. And I'm leaning into my silly little requests to name things name things using colors and words, and really, really good. Okay, so for those of you that I haven't met yet, I think just to help me know who my audience is, if you could enter into the chat box what your role or upcoming role in Rotary is, that might help me. So if you're a Rotary member, if you work on a committee, if you're a membership chair, maybe just add that into the chat box. I know a lot of you probably work in membership, but or just why you're here today. Cool. Current president, membership, good. Thank you. We have your district governor in here. We'll all have to be on our best behavior. The boss is here. Oh, she's shaking her head no. Okay, good. That's what I like to hear. Okay, awesome. So lots of Rotary leaders here. Well, every Rotary member is really a leader, but okay, awesome. All right, so this is not one of those average workshops where you just get to sit back and relax and just, maybe multitask. This is one that you're going to work in and hopefully walk away with a little bit of a game plan, or even just thinking of things a little bit differently. But here's the secret. I am not going to tell you anything in the next hour or the next 50 minutes that you don't already know. Now, you might have not thought about it the way that I asked you to think about it. But quite frankly, I mean, that's, when I hear people say that they're inspired by someone else, or people tell me that something I've said inspired them, I always push back at that a little bit. It makes me a little uncomfortable, because I think so much of when we listen to someone talk or teach, if I'm doing my job, I'm helping you figure out and tap into the passion or the knowledge that you already have. So, I think take inspiration from that in yourself, and maybe take motivation from it. But that's what I hope that we can accomplish together today. But I am not going to be blowing anyone's minds or doing anything groundbreaking today. All of this stuff you already know, and maybe just we might break it down a little bit to make it sound more actionable. I have a rule that I never like to teach or train something that you can't implement within 24 hours. So my hope is that you can walk away from this session, or, maybe you're not walking away, since we're not in a real, in person. So maybe you'll just kind of, click to another browser. But as you're clicking away, you'll be able to implement at least one idea you had during this 50-minute time with me. So what will be helpful is if you have either a piece of scrap paper, or if you use your phone and you kind of take notes on your phone, or you open up a Word document, or however you want to do that. It doesn't have to be fancy. It could be a Subway wrapper. It could be a napkin. It could be whatever you have handy. It could be, for me, I have my woohoo sign, because I never leave home without it. So whatever you happen to have handy. So, because you're going to want to take some notes, and we're going to be working a little bit in this session. So my first question is, I would like for you, we've already been using the chat box quite a bit, but I would like for you, and let's say 10 words or less, keep this brief, but why are you a member of Rotary? And I know we have important people like district governors here in the room, but we're not trying to impress District Governor Berta. Just doesn't have to be fancy. Why are you a member of Rotary? And we'll add that into the chat box. Great. To make a difference in my community. Thank you, Richard, for being the first to do that. And if everyone else could just fill that in, right? This is your gut reaction. This is your kind of real quick off the cuff, pay it forward, philanthropy, giving back to others. Great. Serving our community, serving the world, moving beyond myself. Oh, because you were invited. Thank you, Deb. Great. To give back. Perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. So here's the interesting thing is I knew what y'all were going to say. I knew y'all would say service or fellowship or the friendships, right? Because I know that people join and people stay in Rotary because of the good they can do and the people they do it alongside. I asked that question in every club, every district, every country that I present to or teach to. And that a lot of the answers revolve around that. And we're actually going to we're going to unpack that a little bit and understand a little bit more about why are those things important to you. So if you could, on your piece of scrap paper, if you could, kind of divide it into 3 sections, just draw 3 lines, a couple lines down it or whatever. Basically, I want to have 3 columns, 3 boxes, 3 circles, however your brain works. And I'd like for you to label those 3 sections: think, stretch, plan. And so you've already proven to me that you can think, because I have asked you lots of hard questions today, like describe Rotary in a color, and you could come up with that. 1 word to describe Rotary. And then I asked you why you're a member. So you've been thinking already. You've proven to me that we can accomplish our first step, which is think. Okay. And now the next thing I'd like you to do is, if everyone could stand up or just sit tall in your chair, whatever you're able to do, but if you could stand up and if you could reach as high as you can, just however high you can reach. Okay, good. Now, are you all doing it? Nobody's lying. Like, you are reaching as high as you can. You're actually trying this. Just give me a little nod if you can do it. Okay. Now, what if I said, okay, I see that you're reaching as high as you can, but can you reach just a little bit higher? Can you do it just like a little bit more, like on your tippy toes or something? Okay, good. Put your arms down before all your arms fall off or something. So what you just did was stretch, because I said, reach as high as you can. And you all did it. And you said, yes, Jenny, we're reaching as high as we can. And I said, how about just a little bit higher? And you could do it because you stretched, right? When I said hi, you just kind of, put your arms up, right? Put your arms up. And then I said, how about just a little bit higher? And you could do it, just that little. And I bet if I'd asked you one more time, can you go just a little bit higher? You probably could have figured that out too, and probably could have done that. So you've proven to me that you know how to stretch. Now, I'd like for you to name 1 person and put this in the chat box. And you don't have to use their name. You can use their title if you don't want to say their name. It could be like neighbor, dentist, but 1 person that you have never talked to about Rotary. So someone in your life, it could be, your coworker, the local hardware store owner, just 1 person that you've never, really had the reason to talk to them about Rotary. Neighbors, good. My priest, boss, hotel owner, new neighbor, a neighbor, mailman, neighbor, good. Restaurant owner, coworker, good. Her spouse. My husband is a Rotary member too, and when he joined Rotary, he actually joined because he's like, well, it'd be nice if I could see my wife sometimes. So he decided he'd join Rotary so that he could see me every once in a while. He tells people before that he was a Rotary hostage, a Rota hostage. All right, thank you all for doing that. So we have just proven that we can think. We thought about why we're a member of Rotary. We stretched when we were asked to, and then we started the beginnings of a plan, because I said, who haven't you talked to about Rotary? But what I was really saying was, who haven't you talked to about Rotary yet? So we're going to make a plan for that. And a lot of what we're doing today is, it's a lot of you work, right? It's a lot of me work, but you can take this back to your club, and everything I've done today, these 3 columns, you can replicate this and have these and start these conversations with your own members. So when you're going through this today, think about what this means for you and what you can do, but also think about how you can take this back to your own organization and how can you have these types of conversations with your members. So first, we're going to think a little bit. So think about your Rotary story and think about what Rotary means to you. So for those of you that were saw the session of me last weekend, you saw a little bit about my path to Rotary, but that's just it. It's my story. Yours is probably different. So feel free to think about what I share tonight, or, today. I guess for you, it's this morning. So what I share this morning or this afternoon, but think about what it means to you, and really take that to be your inspiration when you kind of close down the computer at the end of today. So, I talk about this concept or this idea that I call Rotary Happy. And Rotary Happy is just kind of my fun way of describing a meaningful and impactful member experience, because we're not really asking people to join a club. We're asking them to join this experience, right? Because our Rotary clubs and the Rotary organization is so much more fluid and abstract than kind of a geographic or a structural boundary, right? This experience is different for everyone. And I mentioned last weekend, I think every time someone new joins a club, that club changes a little bit because we reflect those members. So, as you all learned last weekend, but the background of how I came about this kind of Rotary Happy concept was this journey, right, that I had kind of been on. But the term Rotary Happy actually was born out of this conversation that I was having with another Rotarian. And it was when he and I were both club presidents. And I had this silly idea that Rotary clubs should collaborate together. I mean, wild idea. And so I had this idea that I thought all the Rotary clubs in our area could work together to do 30 projects in 30 days, like 30 days of kindness. And so I'm of course very excited. You can all imagine that when I get excited about something, I get annoyingly excited about it. I mean, it's very annoying. And my baseline level of energy is bouncing. So you can imagine how I am when I get really interested or jazzed up about something. I become like, it's unlivable with me. So I'm of course getting very excited, but I'm trying to contain it because we were having lunch in a public place. So I was trying to contain it and talking about this project. And this other president says to me, and he's a good friend of mine, and he goes, well, I'm not really sure how this is going to go. We can try it, but I just don't think that I'm as raw Rotary as you are. So I think you all know he was making fun of me. But I just responded and I said, real defensively, I don't think I'm raw Rotary, which I knew I was. And I just say, I'm just really Rotary happy. Like, I was trying to like downgrade it a little bit. And so it kind of stuck that I was just this Rotary happy person. And so, as I shared last week, when I unpack my story, right, my Rotary story, I can, really trace it all the way back to, when I was a baby. And as you all know from last weekend, I entered the foster care system when I was an infant, and was later adopted from the foster care system. And so, kind of growing up, and my parents who adopted me have cared for and fostered hundreds of children over the past 40 years. They're still foster parents to this day. And I myself am a parent through foster care adoption. One of my children is adopted as well. And so kind of growing up this way, and I think I said this last week, but you kind of see just how much someone's life can change based on the decisions of other people. And that really impacts me and impacts the way that I want to carry out my work, the way that I do my job, the way that I raise my own family, and kind of taking on the responsibility of making good use of those opportunities that I've had along the way, and kind of keep moving towards this kind of world where we all leave these positive impacts on others in our wake. So the reason that I love our organization so much is because it aligns with my own life's mission. So my mission in life is to leave people in places a little bit better than when I found them. And Rotary is how I do that. So for me, when I say I'm in Rotary because I want to support my community, that's the quick answer, right? But when I unpack that, the reason I'm using Rotary to serve my community, the reason that I'm a part of this organization doing this, is because I believe in what the world can be with people like Rotary members, helping us get there. So what I ask you to do is to think back to when I asked you why you're a member of Rotary. And then maybe make a little date with yourself, like schedule a 20-minute coffee break, right? Where you're kind of alone and can think, and just spend some time unpacking that. So to say, I'm in Rotary because of fellowship, or I'm in Rotary because of community service, I'm in Rotary to make a difference. Ask yourself, why does that matter? Why does community service matter to you? Why is it important? If it's fellowship, why does that matter? Why does it matter that you connect with people in your community and form friendships in service? Why does that matter? And just dig a little bit deeper, because in the times when being a part of an organization, not just Rotary, but any organization, in the times when it gets a little bit tough or hard, or we're maybe facing challenges in our organizations, connecting back to that and to that real motivation is what keeps you going forward. And it also helps you cut through some of the nonsense that happens when groups of people get together, and competing opinions and ideas and, traditions sometimes get in the way of progress and all of these things. If you can really think back to, why are we doing this? Why am I doing this? Why is it important? Why does it matter to me? Then that's a great way to seek some clarity when we're tackling big problems. So, just kind of in your paper, or on your notes underneath that think section, just jot down a couple of things to jog your memory, or to remind you later on about why you're a member of Rotary and why is it important to you. And if you feel brave and you want to share, you can add into the chat box why community service, or why fellowship, or kind of, that unpacking of your why. Why does that really matter to you? And as a reminder for me, it's because it's how I carry out my mission. It's how I carry out my vision for how I think the world could be. And Rotary is the way that I can do that. Right. And there's all the other stuff too, right? Like I've made professional connections with Rotary, right? Like it's good for my career, all those other things. But the real thing, the thing that keeps me excited about it, is how deeply personal that connection is. And Rotary is very personal, I think probably for all of you. So kind of write those things down, think about them. You don't have to get too deep and meaningful, but I do think it's an exercise worth doing, make yourself a cup of coffee and spend 20 quiet minutes just reflecting on that a little bit. So now that we've done a little bit of thinking, I hope we're not too tired, but now we're going to stretch. Also, it's really helpful. I should have said this in the beginning, because I do have a rule about this. You've probably noticed I have attempted to make some jokes so far in the last 20 minutes that we've been together, and I really appreciate it if you laugh at them. And we're on Zoom and you're all muted, so I have to just see you laughing so I can imagine what your laughter sounds like. It's been the hardest part for me transitioning to virtual presentations. So if we could just kind of enter into a silent contract that you're going to laugh at my jokes, that would be really wonderful. Thank you for that. So now that we've done some thinking, we're going to stretch a little bit. So how many of you are on social media? Like you use Facebook or something like that? Okay. So I'm also on social media, and I think social media is wonderful. I love it. But also sometimes it's awful. I'm not a big fan of Rotary members who do nothing but sit around and complain about Rotary, but I'm going to tell you something that's a complaint, something that bugs me a little bit. And it doesn't just bug me about Rotary, it actually plagues me about nearly every organization I've ever spoken to or trained with. But the world has changed, and organizations and agencies, workplaces, what corporations, or even community organizations like Rotary have struggled to keep up and adapt to that changing world, right? It's kind of like we're always playing catch up a little bit. And so there's this scary word that gets thrown around a lot, the scary term, and it's change management or change, right? It's terrifying, right? I feel like all I need to do to cause a room full of organizational leaders to scatter is I just walk in and I whisper change. change. And they all run, they all scatter into the corners. And I actually kind of resist the word change. And I don't want to get too into the nerd part of what this word means and why we have this reaction to it. But somewhere along the lines, inherently, we have attached this implied negativity to the word change. So when we approach Rotary clubs or Rotary members and start talking about how we need to change, it sometimes doesn't go over all that well. Have any of you ever suggested a new idea, either in Rotary or in your workplace or another organization that you're in? You've suggested a new idea and it didn't. Anyone ever have that experience where it like didn't go so hot? You were kind of like, oh, well, that was awkward. That didn't work out so well. Right? We've all had this. And again, it's that word, change is a little scary. And so, you know, what you say about change or why someone should change and what they hear might not necessarily line up. So instead, I invite you to consider, this is just an idea, but not to talk about change, and instead talk in terms of stretching. So, you know, when I walk in and I say, hey, we should change the way that our Rotary Club meets. If you're someone who's been a part of that Rotary Club for a really long time and you're really invested in it, you start to get defensive about that of, oh gosh, I mean, this is how I've been doing it for the last 20 years. Are you saying that I've been doing it all wrong this whole time? You know, because we attach feelings. We all care about this. Remember, it's personal. Think back to why you're in Rotary. So it gets a little scary or a little uncomfortable. So, and we tend to cling to our traditions like beacons, right? That's when big organizations with a really rich history, you know, we cling to them. And in some instances we should, because we should honor what we've built over the last 100+ years. But really thinking in terms of stretching of, you know, let's, instead of changing everything, instead of upsetting the apple cart, what if we just make try one new thing? We'll stretch and try one new thing, try something different. And then if that works, we'll keep doing it and we'll try something else and we'll keep stretching and keep stretching. And it's a much more organic way to manage change within large organizations, especially in an organization like ours, where we are all volunteers. So, you know, when you think about if I were the CEO of a company and I said, okay, here's a change that we're making, right? I have that decision-making power, right? I can say, here's how we're doing it. It might not, people might be grumpy about it, but ultimately, right, it's going to happen because I'm the boss, I'm in charge, I'm saying it's changing. So in Rotary, we have a hierarchy that looks a lot like and mirrors a corporation. But the difference is that all of the people who make up our organization worldwide are volunteers. So that change management happens a little bit differently in a volunteer organization than it does in a regular corporation. So I think for us, when we talk about it, we have to be a little more nimble and respecting what has been built and how we can continue to stretch and kind of try those new things. So I'm going to give you an example. And I promise, you know, I'm not, we're going to kind of give a little example about how we can change things or how we can have conversations, positive, productive conversations about changes or about new ideas within our organizations. And because this is a Rotary event, we're going to assume we're talking about a Rotary club, but this could apply anywhere. So if I walked into my Rotary club and I said, hey, y'all, I think that we should lower dues. Scary. Say, I think our dues are a barrier to people joining our club. I think we should reduce them. And stop me when you've heard this, but how often is the response going to say, well, yeah, I hear what you're saying, but, and then they give you all the negative reasons about why it's a terrible idea. Like, yes, but. So when you're a part of those conversations, I encourage you to like leave the buts out of the room, right? And instead focus on yes and. So when you're a person participating in those conversations, commit to yes and, which is a positive change management technique that can help you manage these conversations. And it kind of sets a tone. Yes. So Carol's putting in there, it's an improvisation tool. And so it's a great little strategy to try. So we're going to have some silly fun here. And I want to make sure. Oh, I proposed that and there was dead silence. Yes. So we're going to give a couple of examples, and we're going to, we'll use the chat box again, because I know sometimes muting and unmuting can get a little clunky. So I'm going to give an example, and I would like for, if you have an idea that you can contribute to this example, phrase your response in yes and. So, no yes buts and no roundabout yes ands either. You can only contribute constructively to this conversation. And I promise I'm not going to do anything terrifying like do's. So we're going to keep it low pressure here. So yes and. So you're all in my Rotary Club, or I'm in your all's Rotary Club, I guess. And I walk in and I say, hey, I have an idea. I think our club should participate in the local parade. So now in the chat box, add in your yes ands. I think our club should participate and walk in the local parade. Yes, and we can all wear costumes. Great idea, Carol. Yes, and I think we can design and make a float. Absolutely. Yes, and we should get feedback from some of our members. Yes, and how can we inspire new members to be a part of this? I'd like to hear more about what's involved. Yes, and we should have choreography. Oh, Tova, yes. Yes, and Berta is very creative. She would want to chair it. You're getting signed up for things. Yes, and we can do a fun dance routine. Perfect. Yes. Oh, we can have a flash mob. And let me know when the flash mob is happening. I want to be there. Yes, include reps from the organizations we have served. Absolutely. Right. And you're tying it in, right, to kind of some of our collaborative efforts that we do in our community. Absolutely. So this could have been a yes, but conversation, right? Well, yeah, but the last time we did that, nobody showed up. Well, yeah, but the last time we did that, it rained. Well, yeah, but the last time we did that, the straw was too dry and the float caught on fire. Well, yeah, but the last time, right? We can just kill this conversation. All right, we're going to do one more. So here's another idea. Hey, Rotary Club, I have an idea. I think we should do a project that addresses hunger in our region. Then add your yes ands in there. Oh, yes, and let's partner with another club. We could have a food drive. Partner with other organizations. Perfect. Oh, we can get the Scouts to help. We should invite other local food security organizations. We could partner with a farm. Yes, there's a local food bank. Yes, I agree. And tell me more. Supplement what the food bank is doing now. Yes, and would we partner with someone? Perfect. Yes, and we should alert the media. Perfect. Have extra produce. Amazing. So now imagine if that was a yes, but conversation, right? Yes, but there's already other organizations that are doing that. Well, yes, but we're stretched a little thin right now. Well, yes, but all those kinds of things. And so I know this was kind of a silly exercise. Obviously, you got a little excited there, and that was kind of the point. And using this technique doesn't mean that you agree all the time to do all the things. But sometimes we have to acknowledge that we don't know what we don't know. And so when we immediately allow conversations to be terminated the second they start because of our preconceived notions, we miss out on all of those things that we might not have known. So for someone who kind of said, there was one in there where it said, oh, and I have produce, that might spark some other ideas, or yes, and we could pull in this organization, or yes, and we could do it this way. Even if the original idea doesn't happen, you're kind of farming and pollinating and cross-pollinating all of these other ideas. So just kind of think about how you can bring this type of energy and this type of creative thinking into the conversations that you're having within your own clubs. So if it's an idea about membership growth, for example, it's really easy to want to shut down ideas right from the get-go, where you say, well, we tried that a couple years ago, it didn't work. And instead think about, well, why didn't it work? And what could we do differently? How is our club different that maybe that might work a little bit better for us this next time around? So what I would like for you to do on your paper under that stretching column is to write down one idea, one opportunity, one thing in your club or in your project level, district level, whatever you want to think about, but one opportunity that you have for stretching. One thing that you could build on or try something new, something in your mind that you have for it. What's that one thing that you could do? And if you're brave, go ahead and put it in the chat box. So this is kind of where you think about, what's that one thing? We don't have enough. If we had a little bit more time, we could kind of really do some action planning around it. But I trust that all of you will take care of that after this session ends. It's one opportunity, right? So some new fundraising ideas, getting creative with fundraising. Great. Yep. Oh, inviting other clubs to join us. So collaboration, right? That's one great thing that you can do, right? And it doesn't take away from anything that your club is already doing, right? To invite another club in doesn't hurt what you're already doing. Great. Oh yeah. That each one bring ones. Every member brings in a member. Perfect. Yep. Stretching our network. Who do we invite into our club? Collaborate, like looking for those new opportunities for collaboration. Perfect. 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 All right. So let's plan in our last 15 minutes. So I want you to think about that person that you mentioned that you have never talked to about Rotary before, and write them down on your plan section. Now, just think for a moment. Can you envision yourself talking to them about Rotary? What would you tell them about Rotary? And does it frame around, would your approach be, what can they bring to Rotary? What can they bring to our club? What missing piece are they going to fill for us? Because that's good. Or could it also be, you've had this great experience in Rotary, you've accomplished so much, and you kind of want to share that with them a little bit. And again, I said earlier, I don't think that we ask people to join a club. I think that we invite them to experience Rotary with us, to experience this thing that we're all a part of. And can you think about why you haven't talked to them about Rotary yet? Is it just that there hasn't been an opportunity? You don't want to seem like you're trying to recruit them into something. But could you see that conversation, maybe sharing an experience that you've had in Rotary? Maybe saying, hey, I was just, in this online event and I watched this, video of a service project and I just thought you'd be interested in it, or, however it wants to be, or, hey, I walked in that local parade with my Rotary Club and I just kept thinking, how fun would it be if you were there with us because you're a great dancer, or whatever it is that you're kind of talking to them about. But maybe set a little bit of an intention to actually talk to that person about Rotary. And yeah, Barbara shares in the chat box about how so many people don't know what Rotary is and what we do. And so there's a lot of things at play there, right? There's like our membership strategy, our publicity strategy, but also it's kind of inspiring our members to get out and talk about it. And so, and that's kind of where that authentic piece comes in. And, one of the, if you think back to last week, if you all were in the session where I talked about my tea kettle, or talked about my electric kettle, I think that's really that motivation there, right? Of kind of, I want to share my kettle with other people. I want to tell people about it. And I want them to, if they're in the market for something like that, I have a recommendation. And so I think that's when we think about Rotary is really personal to us, but we don't take that same approach when we're having conversations with prospective members. And so I think just chew on that a little bit, think about it a little bit. And, kind of remembering that, why are we inviting people to join us? I said last week about, it's not just so we can throw some impressive numbers up on the scoreboard, right? It's not so that we can be bigger than the Lions Club or anything like that. We're inviting them because it expands our capacity for good, right? We pull in the people that we want to serve alongside and who can contribute something and who can get what you get out of Rotary. And so I'm going to wrap up here, but your homework in the planning section is to think about how you would share your Rotary experience or your Rotary story or your Rotary Happy, if you will. But how would you plan to share that with someone else? How would you explain that to them? How would you invite them to it? Would you invite them to a meeting? Would you invite them to a project? Would you invite them to a discussion about an idea that you have? How would you even go about it? And just kind of think through that a little bit and plan on that a little bit. But also, think about the other people in your organization, your other existing members, the people who serve in your committee, the people you sit beside when you go to a meeting, people you've worked with on projects. Are they Rotary happy? And, how can you tell? Have you ever asked them why they are interested in Rotary, why they want to be a member, why they've stayed a member, and just had conversations around that? It might be worth doing. And so, remember, a lot of you said you joined and stayed in Rotary because of the people, right? Because of the people you served alongside, your friends, people you've gotten creative with. So, I think that we can all work both as individuals and as a collective unit to make sure that we all find that kind of Rotary happy. And then we can share that, right? We can share that with others and share that with the world. So, and then we can certainly share that with the people who have not yet found Rotary. So I'm going to stop talking because we have a little bit of time, and I would love to hear from all of you. I really do appreciate all of you participating so actively within the chat box. And I would love to hear if you have questions, either from what I talked about last week or any of the things we've talked about today, or if you just have an idea, I would love to hear from you. If you want to, feel free to unmute or use the chat box, whatever is comfortable for you. I think we have a few minutes left to go.
Hi, Jenny. Thank you so much. And everybody else that's attending here. A lot of great ideas coming up. But, something you just said I thought was really interesting and important is asking our current members, what's the most, the happiest or most memorable experience that they've had, and maybe help them reinvigorate that energy that they maybe once had, or maybe it's waning just because of the COVID situation. So I love that. I love the Rotary Happy.
Good. Yeah, that was when I was my club's president, I met with every member of the club, every current and new joining member. And I just started the conversation by kind of saying, like, the concept of Rotary is kind of interesting, right? It's, hi, join this group of people, make a time commitment. Oh, also give us money, also give us time, like all these things. So it's kind of, it's interesting to me from a human behavior perspective. Why do you join? Why are you a part of this? And it unlocks so many ideas and things. Again, I don't know what I don't know. I can assume why everyone joins or why they think my club is interesting, but I don't really know until I ask. So kind of staying thoughtfully curious about that. In the chat box, Carol asked, how did you do the 30 days of projects? So it's 30 days of random kindness that runs throughout November. So we are now on our 4th year of doing it. And so we actually set up an online sign-up form. And the goal is that no act of kindness is done by an individual. It's always done by a team. And generally the teams are people from multiple Rotary clubs working on this, because that was part of what I wanted to do, is to bring other clubs or even just people who weren't yet members of Rotary. And so we identify 30 things, and it ranges from going and buying a book and donating it to someone, picking up trash, even things as simple as pay for the coffee from the person behind you in line, deliver flowers to a nursing home, like lunch to the fire department. So it's kind of just ranges, and people sign up for them in advance. And then, so it's called Rotary 30. And they, we ask them to post their pictures and stuff using the hashtag Rotary 30. So it's 30 days of kindness in our community. Usually it engages, anywhere from 150 to 200 Rotary members and community members in that project. So yes, very doable. I guarantee there are 30 projects in your community that you could come up with. Dawn asked a question, one idea on how an older club can attract some young, diverse membership. I think it starts with that invitation, maybe inviting someone to be a speaker, maybe thinking about a project that you want to do and then reaching out to a group. So if you have a young professionals group in your area, like, I'm a part of the Young Athens Professionals. It's not a philanthropic organization. It's just a group of young professionals networking. And so maybe kind of planning a project or an event and then asking them to partner with you to create that, right? You build that community value within them. I also think there's a lot of opportunity to leverage the relationship we have with Toastmasters. Now, I think there's a lot of cross work that can be done between our two organizations. So I think those are great strategies for attracting some of those younger members into Rotary. And I think it's important to avoid making them do asking them to only do like the stereotypical young things. So a lot of times, I've seen this with like Rotaract and Rotary clubs, where there will be kind of a Rotary event and then they'll say, oh, well, we need some free labor. Let's invite the Rotaract club to come and set up for us. And that's not really an equal partnership where you're having kind of a real robust planning partnership. So inviting them in to plan something. Sharing, like, don't be like, just make us be the ones to like edit the videos or something like that. But really collaborating. I think too that millennials and Gen Z are some of the most community active generations, right, that we've ever seen at least in the last 2 or 3 generations. So I think when we think about this level of activism and the level of connectedness that amplifies that activism. So it might not necessarily be that there's more activism, but that it's so much more visible worldwide because of how connected those generations are. So I think even partnering with something like that. So if you wanted to host a community event about like one of those groundwater events, having conversations about addressing racism within a community, for example, reaching out to some of those younger generations and saying, we'd like to have this event. Rotary carries influence in our community and might be a good group to lead this conversation. Will you help us plan an event like this? That might be a good strategy. That was more than one idea. See, I don't know why use 5 words to explain something when I can use 100. Any other questions or comments? We have just a few minutes left. Oh yeah, Roxanne shares a good perspective there of financially the younger potential members might not be able to afford the dues. So I think that there are ones that are thinking, why are dues so expensive? And if there are ways to reduce that, that's an option. My club has an emerging leaders program where members can donate to the Emerging Leaders Fund. And it essentially offers a, not really a scholarship, but kind of a subsidy on dues that seriously reduces dues. And it's a 2-year program into the dues reduction. And it involves a, there's also like they take the lead on a project. The people in the Emerging Leaders cohort plan a project, and then the club supports the project that they plan. I think also engaging with employers to help demonstrate to large employers in your area, the value of their employees being a part of Rotary is also really a great idea. Perfect.
So this is Deb, and I have a question. I'm a PR lady, And when I talk to people about Rotary, and I struggle to find someone that I haven't talked to about Rotary, to be quite honest, I get dual reactions. There's both like the venerableness of the history and what Rotary's done over the years. And you saw me put in there, but also a perception that we're kind of old and stodgy. I watched a video from Huntington Beach where they said it's a bunch of old white men having lunch together. Like that was what people walked away with, right? So how do we help people see that we're not that? Because I really don't think that's what we are, but when I go to my community, I hear it a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, I think that that's a long-term game, right? And I think one piece of that is kind of back to the kettle thing, right? Of getting people so excited about the work that they're doing, the good that they're doing in Rotary, that you can't help but talk about it. So I think it's one thing for us as a club or us as a district to share information about like share, those public assets, those collateral pieces. But it's another when you get your members to organically start sharing across their social channels and in their social networks about the work that they're doing. So I think that's one piece of it. And then I think continuing to talk about it across multiple forms of media is great. And I think that just, again, goes back to that whole kettle part of it, right? Of that kind of the kettle is just a, fancy way of talking about word of mouth, right? Word of mouth publicity and promotion. So, kind of thinking of those things and even maybe shaking up the way that you meet. Carol shared about shorter meetings, but maybe, having gatherings in more public places where you can demystify the Rotary meeting a little bit might be a strategy to try too, of maybe having a meeting that maybe once a month you meet after hours somewhere, you meet, maybe you have a meeting that's actually a service project and it's kind of a public event. Those might help demystify that a little bit. Okay, so I wish we could keep sharing and kicking ideas around, but we are at the close of our session. So I understand though that you all have a break here for about 10 minutes or so, but I know you probably had a lot of options of things to do with your time today. So I really appreciate that you chose to spend this last hour or so with me. I'm really grateful to all of you. I will add my email address into the chat box if any of you want to continue this conversation offline. I think I'm pretty easy to find out on the interwebs. So please feel free to connect with me there if you want to chat further. But thank you all so much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your conference.